Welcome to News West 9's West Texas View with Johnny Lou Avery.
We're so glad to be back today and talking about Hillcrest. We left you last Sunday and we didn't really get to finish all of the things we needed to talk about. Plus, we had a parent that is so appreciative of what Hillcrest did for her son that she was delighted to have an opportunity to come and talk about it and to talk about how it made her feel to see her son blossom and what he's doing now as a result of this education that he got at Hillcrest. Hillcrest, is, as you learned last week, or if you're a new viewer, is a school that has been in existence for 22 years. It was started by a woman who had a history of education and teaching, but she just had a heart for the students that seemed to fall through the cracks, that had learning differences that couldn't be met in a large classroom that was aimed primarily at the mainstream students. And so she started that school and wanted to keep it very small. She wanted each class to be no more than 10 students. And most classes aren't even that big. But now she caters to the students that are kindergarten through high school. And you're going to learn more about this nonprofit school. But in the meantime, write down that number that's scrolling across your screen so that you can call and get more information, or so that you can ask for a tour and take your child up there and let them see how a small customized program can really make a difference in a student that has some spectrum of autism or HD disability, dyslexia, or any of those learning differences that we see that students need some specially prepared teachers and equipment. And so our guest today is again Wenda Christopher, who's the Dean of Students with Hillcrest, and Amy Hendrick, who you may know from working in another profession, but she is here to talk as a parent about her experiences. And Wenda and Amy, thank you so much for coming, and I want to thank you especially for coming back today. And as we talk, then feel free to interrupt and add anything that you would like to. But before we start, Amy, I'd like for you to give us a little bit about your background.
Well, I've been in Odessa for 25 years, love the Permian Basin. My husband and I moved here. He's an Odessa boy. I was a healthcare administrator. I worked at Odessa College, but I'm also the mother of two wonderful kids who are now grown and just started off to college on their own. And I myself went to Austin College and graduated with a master's degree at Trinity. And
Austin College is a tough school. That's for the brainy kids.
It was a good school.
Oh,
but,
I know.
And my husband's an attorney in Odessa, so we have roots here and have really enjoyed being here, and both very involved in the community as our kids have been, and just a good place to be and a good place to have a family, as you know, Johnny.
Well, then, how did you get involved with Hillcrest? How did you hear about Hillcrest?
Gosh, we had our son Hunter had some problems when he was born, and I was at the hospital at the time, and we had some early diagnosis that he was growth hormone deficient. And he started at an early age in the early childhood program, and he developed some other problems, and one of those was a feeding problem. So we moved off, and I happened to be in Atlanta for 3 months with my two children, and he was coming back to start first grade. And they told us that he needed to come back and have a very specialized program when he started school. And the public schools, I'm calling from Atlanta trying to figure this out, and it was really tough. And somebody said, you know, there's this lady that has the school, you might call her. So I picked up the phone and called Betty Starnes, who lived 2 blocks away from me at the time, didn't even know it. And Betty said, whatever you need, we can do. And so we came back from Atlanta 2 weeks before school started, and we brought a therapist with us. And Betty had the dean of students at the time. It wasn't Wenda at the time, but the dean of students and the person who would be his teacher and herself spend 4 days with this therapist that came home with us and learned what it was that Hunter needed. And we started first grade at Hillcrest School, and I was trying to drive back and forth and trying to figure out, a whole new life for us, because we lived in Odessa and Hillcrest was in Midland, and we both worked at the time, and we had some wonderful friends and some grandparents that were really helpful and helped us get through a lot of years at Hillcrest. But first grade at Hillcrest, and Hunter was the only first grader, and as I said, he was growth hormone deficient, so most of Hunter's life he's been very small for his size, so he didn't look like a regular first grader. So there were some high schoolers there, and he was a little bitty kid, and he loved it. He was spoiled rotten because he was the youngest kid at the school at the time, and he got everything he needed.
He didn't feel out of place.
He didn't feel out of place at all, and he had felt out of place because of his eating problems throughout basically his whole life at childcare and everything, and just some really funny stories, but people had noticed him, and he would eat in a special place, or at school, in kindergarten when he was in public school, he'd sit in a little cubicle. Well, it was the cubicle that some of the kids that were in trouble would sit in, but smells bothered him really badly, and so it was the only way they could keep him away from smells that would make him sick. And so, so going to Hillcrest and having gone through the feeding program, and just everybody willing to work with him and accept him, kind of gave him this new leash on life. And so we got through first grade, and he was great. And we went back to public school, and he did second and third and fourth grade in public school, and he actually did very well. He's a vociferous reader, just amazing reading above his grade level, and math is his problem. And so he was LD in math, but he really doesn't have, to this day, and didn't have any other diagnosis, but he was small. And as you start looking at a boy in particular going into junior high, being very small, Hunter's also a very loving person, and that's not always real acceptable. And so we had to start looking at our other options as we started looking at junior high. And
you remember
Hillcrest,
what a wonderful experience.
Hillcrest was there, and so we went back and we looked at Hillcrest again, and we made that decision for him to look at fifth grade.
So was he one of the ones that said, hey, let's rethink this Hillcrest stuff?
He did, and it's always a challenge. It's always a challenge to do something different for you and for your student, and sometimes there's a stigma with something. You're going to a different school, or you're going to a special school, and you do what's best for your child, and that's what we did.
We've got to take a break right now, but we've got to finish this story because we're only about a third of the way through it, because this is a great example of what Hillcrest can do for those with special needs or special learning differences. And in his case, he didn't really have a learning difference. He had the sensory and some of the other differences. We'll be back in just a minute and continue this story.
Stay tuned. West Texas View will be right back.